we've got a lot going on, and we have failed to mention that we have primaries coming up on August 1st here in the state of Tennessee. And with that in mind, we've got a primary candidate in studio with us today. We'll have another in studio tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah, Courtney Johnson's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow in the 12 o'clock hour. Courtney Johnson's running against Andy Ogles. And listen, what I am here to do, whether it's with Scott DeJarlais or John Rose or Andy Ogles or Mark Green, whomever it might be, in the primary season or in the general election, part of what I consider my role to do on this radio show is to present to you the candidates that are offering themselves up for service, to allow you to hear from those candidates, and you get to make your own decision. That's what the American experiment is all about. And with that in mind, running for the 4th Congressional District is a man by the name of Tom Davis, and he joins us in studio to talk about his run in the primary against a sitting incumbent, Scott DeJarlais. Tom, thanks for being on with us.
Matt, thanks for having me. And before we get into it, if I may, thank you for having me on, but too, just for what you do here. I don't know if it escaped me or whatever, but the amount of work that you guys have to put in to know all the ins and outs, the issues, and then to keep your sanity on it, I certainly appreciate that aspect, kind. and watching the CNN, so I don't have to.
Now you're talking, because that's the hard part. That occasionally involves brown water, if you know what I'm saying. Tom, I mean, we've met, and you asked to come on the show, and I'm like, obviously we'll have you on the show, particularly that you're volunteering yourself to public service, but you've already done that in the form of your military service, and I want to start by thanking you for your service to your country.
Well, I thank you for the support for that.
Talk to me about your background and what led you to military service, for example.
Military service is a little bit, there's I guess a multitude of things, but a lot of it was family background. My grandfather was a World War II veteran, so that was the predominant one. And the other one, kind of on the other side, is I knew I did not want to go to college, so kind of left it up, with knowing about the military. And I was like, all right, there we go. So at 17, the beginning of my senior year, I joined the Army, and then shipped for basic training between or after my senior year of high school. And then I turned 18 between basic and AIT, and turned 19 in Saudi Arabia for Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And then served regular Army, so I was active duty until April of 14.
Okay.
When I got out of the Army there. And then served for a little bit as a police officer in Arizona, and then moved to Tennessee in 2017 to be closer to family.
Okay. So, where'd you grow up?
Arizona.
Okay. Whereabouts in Arizona?
Prescott Valley is the biggest town. It's right in pretty much the middle of the state. So right. I
don't know why I ask these things. If it's not Tucson or Phoenix, I asked the question. You could have said Poughkeepsie. I would have.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty much the center of the state.
What led you to Tennessee?
My family. So okay. I have an ex-wife, and she moved to Tennessee with my daughter. So to be closer to my daughter,
good for you.
We moved to Tennessee. Fortunately, my wife now came with me. That was.
Oh, she agreed to. Yeah, she agreed to hang in there. Whereabouts do you guys live now?
We live in Morrison. So it's pretty close to McMinnville in Warren County is where I live.
I love Warren County.
Yeah.
Home of Dottie West.
Yes. So, and we love it. We've been, like I said, we've been here since 2017, and yeah, it's just, we love middle Tennessee and just Tennessee in general. And that's one of the ups to doing this is, getting to know the district a lot more and just some of the history in it. One of the surprising ones to me was David Crockett and his story. So, I'd encourage anybody out there, if you look into his story, even just a little bit, and you're like, holy smokes, that was a man's man.
Oh no, that's how America was founded right there, boy, is the concepts presented by Davy and some of his brethren. What led you? I mean, obviously, if you are in the military, you clearly love your country, and your heart's in the right place with regard to where you are there. But how does that parlay into offering yourself up to political service?
So last year at Memorial Day, my VFW post had asked me to give the address at our Memorial Day ceremony, the speech there. And I did. And after that, I was approached by Paul Sherrill, who is actually my state representative, and he asked me if I'd ever considered going into politics. At that time, I said no, I hadn't. Other than as a kid growing up, you're like, I'm going to be president. But anything as an adult, seriously, I hadn't. And then I started looking around, at how I was being representative and how I was participating in the republic myself. And so I knew I needed to lean in a little deeper and started looking around at how I was being represented. And I got to the 4th Congressional District and looked at some votes, and I said, I can do better. Mm-hmm. And so, and in a couple other ways as well. But the votes is what pushed, kind of drove me into it for this particular office.
Before we get into some of the particulars regarding that, I just want to ask you about your thoughts on the events over the last several days. I mean, kind of give us your impressions about Saturday and how that happened and God's providence in Donald Trump surviving that attack, and the RNC obviously this week. Just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely, divine providence in that. I mean, and then just being set up the way it was. I would be inclined to think that he had some help, or I mean,
it's hard to believe.
It's hard to believe that he just he scrambled up on top of this. Just happened to be the roof they missed or didn't want to go onto because it was hot. It's kind of part of the job. I mean, I don't know. I threw the body armor on in Afghanistan and got into the truck when it was hot or it was dangerous. It's whatever. You sign on for that. That's what you're there to do. Mm-hmm. And why they said don't be up there. That'll shake out.
So if you're in Congress, what are your priorities in Tom Davis's mind? What's number one, number two, number three? You're in Congress. You're representing the 4th Congressional District. What are your priorities?
So the priorities are fiscal responsibility. I've raised it that, and for a very long time, we've had a Congress that has absolutely no problem spending our taxpayer dollars like a bunch of drunken paratroopers. Mm-hmm. We're $35 trillion in debt now and increasing like every 100 days by $1 trillion. Absolutely ridiculous. So problem one is we've got to stop that spending. And we do that by cutting administrative bureaucracies. We stop spending or sending our money overseas for absolutely no reason, and especially to people that hate us. So that madness has to end.
Where are you on and it might be an unfair question to ask in the middle of your answer here, but speaking of sending it overseas, funding the Ukrainian conflict.
I'm a hard no on that. Hard pass. And we're getting, our current representative is fine with it. And I just checked some current votes where they're trying to add in, like, you can't spend money on this. There's been several, add-ons to the bill, the National Defense Authorization Act, and the stuff that goes with that, where they're trying to say, in fact, Congressman Green added one, said you cannot spend money to Ukraine. And he voted no. So I would have been a yes. Let's vote. Let's stop the spending to Ukraine.
I gave DeJarlais hell over his vote on the NDAA.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bad vote.
And so and that one in particular in 23 in December, that one, and he said he gave us a yes vote because of a 5% pay raise for the military. And I'm good with pay raises for the military, having served for almost 25 years. But what I'm not okay with is the problems additionally created in there, because in that particular one, there was taxpayer funding for gender affirming care. Mm-hmm. Horrible idea. Has nothing to do with the readiness or the defense of the nation, and it's going to be a detractor, because now I can't even hardly imagine how those guys within that unit, especially down at like the squad level, because this person is of no use to that unit. They're non-deployable. They're probably going to be of minimal value doing their job in garrison. Here in the States. So now everybody else has to pick up the slack around them. So that's why he said he gave us the yes vote. Was that?
That's a good example of where you would disagree on some of the votes. What are some of the other votes that you would say current representation, Scott DeJarlais, missed the mark and Tom Davis would serve the district better?
So the other one was H.R. 6090, the redefining of anti-Semitism. I would have been a no. And even as he talked about it, he's like, it's not that big of a deal. And so I don't really know why he voted yes on it, because in that legislation would have made it illegal for us to criticize the Israeli government as citizens, which why that's a thing, I don't know. Free speech and somewhere along the line, something.
If you don't protect speech you disagree with, with, you're not really protecting speech.
Right. So he gave us a yes. I would have been a no on that. And then as I look at the voting record too, he'll vote no on stuff to bring it to the floor, and then it turns into a yes, or like vice versa. And that was another one that I would have disagreed with on. He got that final vote right, but it was on the FISA reauthorization. And I would have been a no to even bring that to the floor.
So you canvass the district, and you're obviously you're knocking on doors, you're talking to folks outside of physical issues, and I understand that's a big deal, and I appreciate the fact that it's the number one priority. I'm sad to report that I don't think it's on the top of mind of Americans or Tennesseans because Republicans overspend like Democrats, sadly.
Right.
What are folks in the district telling you?
So we do talk about that in the district, but as far as a district issue, he doesn't come to the district. That's one of the biggest things is we don't see him. Mm-hmm. So for me, quarterly town halls in the district somewhere. I mean, it's a pretty big district, but scheduled, announced,
get around
published,
to the bigger cities, and bigger areas. Sure.
But get that. In fact, I called today asking because they're taking August off. There's no legislative days in August, and they couldn't tell me. Like, well, and then the guy was, hey, hold on a minute, let me ask. So he went around and asked, and they're like, yeah, don't know. They're, nothing. Don't know what they're doing for their campaign season. So no idea where we will see our representative during August. So,
I've long said that the long-term existential threat that America faces is the national debt, the $35 trillion. The short-term existential threat that we're seeing is on the southern border. Talk to me about your observations about what's happening down there and what Congress needs to do better to solve it.
Well, they need to write clearer legislation, and this is comes to the Chevron deference.
Sure.
And that's what we've gotten into the habit. Congress has gotten into the habit of doing is just very broad, broad limits.
And they'll figure it out. The executive branch figure it out, right?
And how's that worked out for us?
It hasn't. And thank you, Supreme Court.
Yeah, right. But and I think that's probably why they're more upset about it. Is like, hey, wait a minute, now we got to do our job. And write clear, concise legislation. So that's how we reel that in and break this stuff down. So now what we have been hearing is we passed the current version out of the House, the NDAA. It's 1,008 pages. So stack two reams of paper on top of each other, and that's what you're talking about. And then the other one is, and I have the numbers, but it's 16,000 documents or pieces of legislation have come to the 118th Congress so far. 16,000. And if you figure just that one is 1,008 pages, they're not reading this stuff. So how do we, it's just, to me, we need to slow down, and deal with what we have on hand and go back, clear up that bad legislation, give clear, concise instructions to the executive branch on what they're supposed to do. And that's what we had for, when Donald Trump, his first 2 years, all the never Trumpers. So what did he do to get it done?
You're a Trump man, obviously.
I am, yes.
Yes, sure.
And so he didn't have the backing to pass the legislation. So he executive ordered, which I wasn't super excited about because 4 years later, Trader Joe can come in and undo it all. And now millions upon millions upon millions of illegals coming across our borders.
Yeah, got to get it through Congress and outside of the executive realm. Yeah. All right, real quick, how does an Army man feel about a Marine getting picked for VP consideration?
I am very concerned about the amount of crayons that will be left for the rest of the country to have.
See, I knew I could have gone out of you, Tom. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, I think it's great. Those guys.
Yeah, that's right. There you go. There you go, Ben. Give him a little rim shot.
Those guys are a little bit shifty, but I think we'll be okay.
You'll be all right with JD.
I think he'll serve us well.
Well, listen, it's a great opening conversation. Maybe we'll get a chance before August 1 to re-up it and have a new conversation. Tell people where they can find out more about your candidacy.
Primarily, I post on Facebook, Tom Davis for Congress. Okay. I'm also on the YouTube. I have a whole bunch of videos up there, and that's Tom Davis TN4 on YouTube. And I do Facebook, the Instagram, and on the X, and that's Tom Davis TN4. My email, tomdavis.tn4@gmail.com.
All right, there you go. Hot and heavy. Tom Davis coming in hot.
Yeah,
and you gotten some great response. Somebody says, I'm from Morrison. I'm liking this guy. Daryl says, glad I early voted for this guy. So There you go.
Yeah, I get that feel out there that's we didn't get to it, but some of the other comments I get from the district is it's time for change.
Regardless of where you are on any of these races, competition makes everybody better, and I love it. Absolutely love it. Tom, thank you for stopping by.
Matt, appreciate your time.
It's running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. Check him out. It's 53 after the hour on Super Talk.